from the 21st chapter of John. Chris, the monitor isn't working. Oh, now it is. Thank you. Then Jesus saith unto them, Children, have ye any meat? Did you ever get asked that? They answered him, No. Let me set you up. This is towards the end of the gospel. The disciples are out fishing on the lake, the sea, lake. And I use this King James because it says, have ye any meat? The Revised Standard Version says, have you any fish? Because they were fishing. This is the story of, his next line is, and he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it in for the multitude of fishes. You probably remember the number. 153. Yeah. But the important piece is the word meat. It could be fish, but it also connects to, he did a meat phrase, a meat statement elsewhere, which I'll get to. So I wanted to be able to pair them because they do pair. Do you have any meat? Have you any meat? Okay. We've been in a place where we could tell our awareness, our spiritual consciousness was in a high place. Haven't you experienced that? You might experience it. You know, you're in a high place before you come here, and when you leave, it's way down there. And when we were in school out at Unity, we'd come out of the Silent Unity healing service and go to lunch, and you'd know you were in an elevated state of awareness. And over lunch, we talk about mundane things, and somebody might say, can't you feel the consciousness just, and you could feel some part of your being just changing. They'd been out all night. They hadn't caught anything. What do you think their attitude might be? Bad. Yeah, that's it. Bad. How would yours be? You'd be frustrated. It was their profession, right? They needed the fish. So their consciousness was down. We all have times when our consciousness goes down. And you know what happens when your consciousness goes down? So does your life. Things happen. Things get a little less easy. More challenges seem to pop up. So he's as much as saying, I realize your consciousness has fallen a little bit because you're disappointed out there. You didn't catch what you wanted to. We need to get it back up again. Well, how are they going to do it? He's saying, have you any spiritual meat? He's not talking about physical food. He's not asking for a hamburger or a rib roast or anything. Spiritual food. Do you have any divine ideas? Some spiritual meat, divine idea to chew on, to nourish you. Meat's a good symbol here. Because don't you chew on an idea? You take it in, and Charles Fillmore used the word appropriate or assimilate. Well, isn't that what happens when you chew on it and you finally swallow it? And remember, we are what we eat. That does seem to be true. At least it is with ideas, spiritual ideas. So he's trying to bring them back up into a consciousness of the presence of good, of God. So he says to them, cast your net on the right side of truth, the side of where you are aware of the presence of good and of God. You need something? Get yourself centered in the idea that it's already present, that God has already prepared it for you. Get yourself centered in the idea that God is your source, and God says yes. So they cast their nets of their minds in a new way, seeking the good. In this process, it requires a conviction of the presence of God. And that's one of the most important things we can ever generate, develop. The awareness that wherever we are, God is with us. God is within us. How many times Jesus said, the Father and I are one. He who sees me seeth the Father. Do we say things like that? Do we remind ourselves that the very essence of God is right here where we are? The intelligence, the power, the supply of God is right here. The life of God. We have no life of our own, Charles Fillmore said. We have God life. It is God living life through us. It takes a vivid conviction of that presence right now. And I'm going to use the expression, a conviction of divine love. And that's not the, oh, I feel so good because God loves me. It's, I am so aware that God and I are one. Love is the idea of universal unity, connectedness, oneness. Father and I are one. I can't remember where it is, but I did read in Charles Fillmore's writings where he said this was Jesus' secret, identifying with the Father. The Father and I are one. He who sees me seeth the Father. A conviction of the presence of God. A conviction of the divine power right here where we are. A conviction of divine life right here. And certainly a conviction of divine supply. When each one of us, when we have those times where you all of a sudden realize your consciousness is changing, falling. How can you tell? Well, listen to some of the thoughts that pass through your mind, or some of the words that come out of your mouth. Cranky? Critical? Negative? Talking about mundane things as if they were the reality of life. You get into that space, we've been there, we know in that space, don't we, that it's somebody's fault. And we want to find out whose fault it is. Because when we're in that space, it's always out here. Something outside. Paul said, and this is in 1 Corinthians 13, we see as through a glass darkly. Well, reminded me when I was thinking about this of my house in Cincinnati. My house had been the farmhouse on the farm. which was now one house in a city. So it was quite old. A nice old-time slate roof. It was a wonderful roof. 2 stories and an attic, but high ceilings. I think they were 9-foot ceilings in the house. It's kind of remarkable. My kitchen was 14 by 15. Yeah, that's just my kitchen. My bedroom was about 14 by 14. Some of the rooms were just huge. At one time, it had fireplace pretty much in every room. But the windows, some of those windows were original windows. And some of the glass was really ripply, and things outside looked a little strange, reminded me of Through a Glass Darkly, distorted. And I think Paul's correct. We see with human eyes, and we see appearances that are distorted, and we try to make sense of them from a human perspective. And when we do, we're seeing lack, we're seeing inharmony, we're seeing some things that seem ugly. We're seeing that it's other people's fault, it's the weather's fault, it's the government's fault, and sometimes it's even God's fault. What we need is window replacements. Yeah. A renewal by Anderson. Yeah. Good, clear perception. Now, I spoke about the meat being spiritual food, and that spiritual food are divine ideas. And that spiritual food, remember, I connected last week substance and the divine idea of the perfect expression of the desires of your heart. Perfect expression of all good in your life. Charles Fillmore says substance is from the realm of ideas. So it is the idea, the perfect thing, perfect quality. If we don't have spiritual meat to chew on deep within us, then we're hungry. You know that kind of hunger? I don't know about you, but I have this where I'm hungry, but I have to find what it is I want. Because for me, how it works is if I eat something that is not what I want, I'm still hungry. You know, if the craving is for watermelon and I try a cookie, it doesn't work. I need to have the watermelon. Find that thing. The Bible points out clearly what it is that counts spiritually, that feeds us spiritually. Children, have you any meat? Have you any divine ideas? We've seen this before in I can't think of the scripture passage. And I thought I jotted that down. Oh, yes. John 8:32. John 8:32. Do you remember it? You shall know. You got it. And what happens? It sets you free. You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You shall know the idea of good, the idea of the presence of God, the idea of infinite supply, the idea of health and wholeness, and that idea will set you free from lack, from inharmony, from ill health. The idea. But not just to know. To know here includes to feel. When you really know something, you feel the absolute reality of it. You are one with it. Oh, that word love again. You love it. And you are one with it. Now, on the back of your bulletin, and you don't have to turn to the bulletin because I'll let Chris show them to you. There's a prayer work for finding your true place. And this passage of scripture I did want to refer to, and I almost forgot it. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat that ye know not of. I remember the first time I heard that, and I thought, what? There's some kind of fast food in that country that we didn't know about. No. When we're in a human consciousness, are we functioning according to spiritual truth and divine ideas? No. What was Jesus functioning as? Perfect expression of the Christ. Who's saying this? I've had meat ye know not of. It's that Christ within that's saying, I am open to all God's divine ideas. Which means, so are you. You are open to all ideas of life and love and health and happiness and wholeness, peace, prosperity. We just have to open our minds to it. So, the prayer technique I've put on the back of the bulletin, it'll be on the screen, for finding your true place. You know, whether you want to be of service somewhere, you're tired of sitting at home, or you're looking for a job, or you wonder, golly, I have a job, but I don't know, I don't like it. Could we have that, Chris? Thank you. No, the one before. It's not working? Okay, turn to your bulletin, because it's not working. Turn to your bulletin, on the back of your bulletin, finding your true place. A spiritual being cannot be out of his true place. I am a spiritual being, not just a human being. I turn my life and my will over to the highest and only power. God is now completely in charge of my affairs. And step by step, I am being led to my true place, already prepared for me by God. Let's speak this together. A spiritual being cannot be out of his true place. I am a spiritual being, not just a human being. I turn my life and my will over to the highest and only power. God is now completely in charge of my affairs, and step by step, I am being led to my true place, already prepared for me by God. Now, how do you use this to the best of your ability? You take time every day. You might copy this down and carry it with you. But between the times that you reaffirm it in a moment of peace, quiet, and contemplation, you are open, receptive to release and let go of the negative things that are in your mind or in your heart. The negative things that come up that need to be released. That's why they come up. So let's speak this once again. And speak it softly, but speak it softly with power and authority. Together, a spiritual being cannot be out of his true place. I am a spiritual being, not just a human being. I turn my life and my will over to the highest and only power. God is now completely in charge of my affairs, and step by step, I am being led to my true place, already prepared for me by God. A spiritual being you are. And as you turn your life and your will over to that only power, to God, you give God charge of your life. Because God's will for you is always good. Absolute good. Sometimes we're afraid to turn our lives over to God. Oh, what if he doesn't do what I need or want? Or God knows. And certainly God knows how. And it is the nature of God to bring it forth when your mind and your heart are centered in that presence and that power. Now, I've also given you one here for healing. We're seeking to grab hold of the substance of health and wholeness. The idea of that perfection that is already here. A word or two in this may surprise you. For healing, God is supreme perfection for my life. Can you accept that? God is supreme perfection for my life. You think there's anything better? His word is like unto that perfection. It acknowledges only that perfection. As I realize this perfection and decree the word of health from that plane of understanding, the word goes forth and establishes what is true already. It does not heal anything. Got it? Because in its perfection, there is nothing to heal, save in my own consciousness. Its work is to behold and carry out the perfection of its being. Can you accept that? Can you work with that? Therefore, as I realize thoroughly that God is that supreme perfection, and speak from that realization with conviction, all things in my body are arranged in divine order with the least delay. Let's join from the beginning and speak it together. God is supreme perfection for my life. His word is like unto that perfection. It acknowledges only that perfection. As I realize this perfection and decree the word of health from that plane of understanding, the word goes forth and establishes what is true already. It does not heal anything because in its perfection there is nothing to heal. Its work is to behold and carry out the perfection of its being. Therefore, as I realize thoroughly that God is that supreme perfection and speak from that realization with conviction, all things in my body are arranged in divine order with the least delay. Can you see how it's designed to work on your thought process and your thinking? And it takes some repetition to begin to eat this meat, to appropriate this divine idea, these divine ideas. But specifically, this idea of health and wholeness as your divine right, as what you already are. We know the Spirit of God within you is eternal. That Spirit that is you and is expressing as you is whole and well. It is only the outer clothing that seems to exhibit something else at times. So we want to grab hold of that divine health and wholeness with which we were created, each one of us. Perfect, whole, well, and free. You shall know the truth, that divine idea of life and health. And the truth will set you free as you feel it, as you become one with it. Now, I didn't specifically write another one for prosperity, but I gave you some ideas about prosperity. That's on the back of your bulletin. The great prophets in the Bible understood the higher law of prosperity. They entered the silence and prayed and blessed the substance at hand. Oh, do you remember such stories? Well, what did Jesus do at the feeding of the 5,000? He blessed what they had. Some fish and some bread. Nothing near enough for the multitude. Blessed what you have and allow it to expand. They entered the silence and prayed and blessed the substance idea at hand on the invisible side and blessed it into form. Because remember, after they all ate their fill, they took up 12 baskets full of leftovers. Well, as they did in the Bible, so must we. So I suggest that ask or decree with a clear-cut understanding of God's living substance or the know-how for prosperity, coming into form as you need it. Always speak the word of abundance with power and authority, expecting results. Remember, in the Gospels it says Jesus spoke as one having authority. He spoke with power and with authority. God is my instant, constant, abundant source of supply. Do you believe me? I don't. There's no life in back of those words. You need to feel them. Remember, you shall know the truth. You have the idea, but then you have to reach the place where you feel that idea because you become one with it. I always speak the word of abundance into form with power and authority, expecting results. Get the feeling of God's substance of supply being lavished upon this area of your life now. Are there some suggestions there for you? Yeah. Because you know enough truth to be able to put this into practice in any area of your life. Children, have you any meat? They said no, but we say yes. Infinite ideas of good for us, directly from the mind of God.